You're listening to TGI Sports Talk with your host, Keith Angle, on Northeast Streaming Sports.
Good morning, everybody. Keith Angle for TGI Sports Talk. It's a beautiful, beautiful morning here in Northeast New York. We're in East Greenbush, still the first and probably only live streaming sports webcast in East Greenbush. We're on Northeast Streaming Sports. I want to welcome everybody from Northeast Streaming Sports, from my personal page, from Zodiac. We're still not up on the TGI Sports Talk page, unfortunately, and I apologize to those people that won't get to see it. Damn. I mean, the reach that we have with the groups, guys, is like in the tens of thousands. Now, they don't all view, but that's how many people don't have access to the show anymore. So we're still fighting with Facebook. Actually, it's a one-sided fight because I've heard nothing from them. But we'll see how it goes. I might have to rebuild everything and start over. Listen, I want to thank my guest from last Friday, Mike Heath. Great response to Mike's interview. What a great guy. We had an awesome conversation. Started out with the Yankees, had a great career with the A's and the Tigers. Also played with the Cards and the Braves. But Mike was a great interview. Thanks again, Mike, for coming on. If you see this, and good morning, Dave Guyette, back up to number one in the room. Guys, my guest today, I had to record this interview last night. It's going to be a phone interview, unfortunately. Denny McClain, baseball's last 30-game winner, two-time Cy Young Award winner, American League MVP. Not just a one-year wonder, guys. This guy had a really good Major League Baseball career. His arm went south. Some other issues come up, and Denny speaks frankly about them. You can judge for yourself, the stories you know about Denny, and many have been out there. You know, I leave it to people to judge for themselves. I asked Denny for his side of different things, and I wish we had more time because, Denny was short. We had 50 minutes to do the interview, and bear with me, by the way, the first 3 minutes are a little rough because I was transitioning from the fact he wasn't going to be on video to getting the phone hooked up with the Bluetooth. But by the 3-minute mark, it's fine. And it's okay, except for maybe a short 30-second spot in there. But if you're impatient, just go to the 3-minute mark and you'll be fine. 3-minute mark on the video, by the way. So anyway, Denny was a really, really good player. We're going to get into everything that went on. My condolences to Denny right up front, too, as he just lost his wife, Sharon, here recently. So our condolences go out to Denny and his entire family. We talk a little bit about that during the interview. So anyway, with no further ado, actually, we'll put Dave's comment up here. Probably the only 30-game winner ever. No, well, the last one, yes. There were many 30-game winners before Denny, but there have been none since and probably never will be again. 20 games is like winning 30 games today, the way the game is played. Anyway, we won't get into all of that. We will play the interview Denny McClain recorded last night. So, everybody, as I mentioned, my guest today is the last 30-game winner in Major League Baseball, Denny McClain. Denny had wasn't just a one-season wonder. Denny had a really good career. Two-time Cy Young Award winner, MVP, also two-time All-Star, but we'll ask Denny about that. We'll welcome Denny in right now. Denny couldn't do video today, so we're going to do an audio interview. Welcome to the show, Denny.
Thank you. Nice to be here.
Awesome to have you. Am I right? Two-time All-Star?
3 times.
3-time All-Star.
Yeah.
Excellent. We don't want to cheat you out of that.
Yeah.
Excellent. It wouldn't be Denny because I don't think we are going to get this sound. So you're not hearing me now.
I'm hearing you.
You are hearing me.
Yeah, you're fine.
All right. Got to turn you up, I guess. Okay, good. All right, if we didn't have volume there, I do have Denny McClain, 30-game winner, 1968, last person to do it. So, Denny, let's jump into, you grew up in Illinois, right? Chicago area, went to high school. What's that? Mount Carmel. I feel like I interviewed somebody else who went to Mount Carmel recently, Lloyd Walton from Marquette. Yeah.
Step up school for Notre Dame.
How about basketball players? Any basketball players come out of there? Any NBA basketball players come out of there?
Yeah, I right offhand, I don't remember who the NBA guys were, but Mayor was one of the kids that played in Mount Carmel. That was a terrible death of his.
Yeah.
And a bunch of people who went to Mount Carmel. It was one of those schools. We always had great coaches to win All-American, and some other guys that really were well educated in the sports that we had at Mount Carmel.
Excellent. So when you come out of there, you don't get drafted by Detroit. You get drafted by the Chicago White Sox and play in their minor league career for a bit. Actually, you had a great start to your career in pitching a no-hitter in your very first appearance.
They sent me to Harlan, Kentucky, and I'd never been on a plane. And the only time I ever rode a bus was in Chicago going to high school. In fact, I had an hour and a half ride every day to get to Mount Carmel. But as far as an airplane, the first time I've ever been on an airplane, flew into Knoxville, got on a bus and went another 9 or 10 hours to Harlan, Kentucky, and got there, and it was a rooming house where all the guys were staying, no elevator. It was 100 degrees in the shade, and believe it or not, the front desk was on the 5th floor.
Wow.
You had to walk up with your bags. But the first thing you had to do was get beyond the guy who was sitting at the front door with his coon dog and spitting in the spittoon, because you didn't want his spit all over you. So you had to wait for him to clear his sinuses and clear his spittoon before you could get in the building. Crazy stuff.
How many guys you think are dealing with that today?
I don't know.
I doubt any of them are.
Yeah, they're not. That hotel's been torn down, and the city of Harlan, they don't do coal there anymore, and things have dramatically improved.
Well, that's good. Well, a lot of things have improved, and some haven't, I guess, since 1960.
You're right.
1963. So you don't stay with the White Sox that long. You end up, there was a rule then, I guess, that if you weren't put on the major league roster, you became available to every other team. And you ended up getting drafted by the Tigers, and you make a pretty swift ascension through their minor league system in 1 year and get to the majors by the end of 1963, I believe, right?
In fact, in the minor leagues that year, I won 20 ball games, and then I won some more in Puerto Rico that year. So I was kind of the leading winner in professional baseball that year.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, it really is. And in Puerto Rico, I mean, I got to play against Clemente and Cepeda and some other major leaguers, and it was quite an education for a 19-year-old to be pitching against Orlando Cepeda and Clemente. In fact, the first time I pitched against Cepeda, struck him out 4 straight times and struck out Clemente 3 straight times. So, it was a good time in my life for pitching at that point in time.
That's interesting. Do you think pitching against those guys, is it safe to say that helped your
confidence?
Confidence and quickening your ascent to the major leagues?
Yeah,
to stay.
So. They found out that my fastball would rise 99% of the time, and that's a tough pitch to catch up with. I mean, nobody can really catch up with it if it's effective. And fortunately for me, I figured out how to do it in a real consistent manner, and it stayed with me until I hurt myself.
Yeah. It's interesting. I mean, you don't get right to the Tigers. You did play at their AAA team in Syracuse, which is only a couple hours from me here. I live in East Greenbush, New York, near Albany.
I was there for about 2 weeks.
Oh, only 2 weeks. So probably enough time to spend in upstate New York is 2 weeks actually in the spring.
Just enough time for my wife and I to lose our security deposit.
Well, maybe you can get it back now.
I don't know. Things have changed so dramatically. It's a different game. It's a game that I don't recognize anymore. I just don't get it. I just, why they're trying to tear the game apart, I don't get it. They're trying to make the game faster. It's impossible when you're making 3, 4, 5 pitching changes every night. Now they're playing 7-inning doubleheaders, which makes no sense to me. I mean, listen, there's a lot of things that you can do with the game, but I'm telling you this, if they would remember this, when we played, we had a lot of games, 2 hours and 5, 10, 15 minutes because we threw strikes. That's number one. But number two, we had a higher mound. We had a 16-inch mound. Yeah. Give us back the mound, and I guarantee you the game would be quicker and better.
Well, it's funny. I was going to get into this with you later, but since we're here, I mean, every rule change, since 1968 at least, has been in favor of the hitters, right? Nothing has been in favor of the pitchers.
Absolutely.
And you talked about the 7-inning double headers, the starting with a runner on second base in extra innings. They're fixing things that weren't broken. If they just enforced the rules that were already there, to me anyway, the games would move along.
Listen, they're experimenting with stealing first base.
Oh, I know.
I mean, come on. I mean, where does this end? I mean, listen, I know the commissioner, who I think he's done a hell of a job, by the way, but all of these new things, these new insertions into the game, it doesn't work. People are upset about it.
Yep.
And anybody you talk to says, this isn't the game I grew up watching. Guys are striking out. The guys are either hitting 3 home runs a night or striking out 5 times in a row. I mean, it's just a total different game, and the pitching sucks. You got a few good pitchers, exceptional, but you do not have throughout the league. You got a lot of guys with 5 and 6 and 7 run ERAs, just tons of them, and that is not a good thing for the game.
Why do you think? Do you think it's because of the change to the promoting the hitting, Denny, or is it the development of pitchers as well?
No, I think it's just development. I think they signed a kid last year for $8 million here, Casey Mize.
Yeah,
Casey Mize can't get you out. And I think he's had one game, and I think it was in spring training, where he pitched more than 5 innings. Every game I think he has started in the big leagues, he's been out before the end of the 5th inning. Every game.
Yeah.
And, he's getting lit up like you can't believe. He's got whoever signed this guy should be shipped off to Guam, because the kid does not have good velocity. He's only about 90, 92 miles an hour. Ball is at times as straight as a string, and nobody seems to be able to help him. You're not going to help him with a college coach coming over and teaching a major league pitcher, at least supposed to be a major league pitcher, how to pitch. I mean, there's a theory to pitching. There's a system to pitching, and there aren't many guys on the Tigers today that are pitching in any system. And without a system, as Johnny Sain once said, we had Sain for he was the best pitching coach any of us ever ran into. And Johnny would say, boys, if you don't pitch in the system, you'll never win. And he was right. There are certain things you do during a 9-inning ball game that, whether it's not changing up when you got a guy 0-2 or 1-2, or throwing a changeup when you got a guy 2 balls and no strikes. I mean, there's certain things you do, and these kids just don't get it.
And those things have got to be taught before they get to the major leagues, right? I mean, it's things you learn in the minor league system, right?
They're supposed to learn that in Harlan, Kentucky, and Knoxville, Tennessee, and Syracuse, New York.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you don't stay in the minor leagues for a couple of years, unless you've got tremendous talent, if you don't stay in the minor leagues for a couple, 3 years, you're not going to learn anything. And going to the major leagues right out of college or high school, man, that's devastating. That's death. It is such a different world. And college is, like I've always said, there's many college games as I've seen. College at best is a AA sport, maybe AA. With the good schools, it's AA. But the rest of the schools, it's A-ball, just straight up A-ball.
You know, the other thing is they pay these guys the most money in a lot of cases, right? But then they don't pitch the most important part of the games because most of them, outside of a couple guys, I mean, Garrett Cole, I love him, a Yankee fan. I love Garrett Cole. DeGrom for the Mets. These guys aren't looking to the dugout to come out after 90 pitches, right? Everybody else is trained to look for somebody to come and take them after 90 pitches.
Well, you know what? It's not their fault. The manager says, give me a good 100 pitches and I'll get you out of there.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're winning. You know, that's just not the way the game was intended to be. I never understood it. I mean, you send a guy out there, and we got guys who pitch 5 innings, 6 innings, making $10, $12, $15 million a year. Think about that.
Yeah.
I mean, if I didn't have a sore shoulder, I could still pitch. I swear to you, I could.
I believe you could. If you're left-handed, I know you could for sure. It wouldn't even be a doubt. Listen, before we move on from this topic, I want to talk about Madison Bumgarner's no-hitter that wasn't a no-hitter. I mean, I understand they put a rule in, almost 30 years ago now about game shortened no-hitters that they weren't going to be recognized. But Madison Bumgarner he couldn't pitch more innings because they made a rule that the game could only be 7 innings. I mean, to me, that's a disgrace that he's not allowed to have the fact he can't claim he pitched a no-hitter.
Every game in Little League, when a kid pitches a 6-inning no-hitter, is registered in high school, and Babe Ruth ball and American Legion. All of those are 7-inning games.
Yeah.
And, they're all registered, but, for some reason, they shun the idea that a 7-inning no-hitter is a no-hitter. Listen, Baumgartner's a pretty good pitcher to begin with.
Yeah.
And if you don't want to give him the credit he deserves, he's been around a while too. So, it makes no sense. When a guy pitches a no-hitter, 7 innings, 5 innings, 10 innings, you know what? They should promote the guy. Right. It helps the game.
Right.
And, I haven't seen much about his no-hitter today at all.
No, all about, well, you're talking about the guy from the Orioles that pitched one yesterday? Or Bumgarner, Johnny Means from, I mean, he pitched, and he barely didn't get a perfect game because he threw a wild pitch on a third strike in the 3rd inning. He pitched to 27 guys. That guy got thrown out stealing. So he had a perfect game if he hadn't thrown a wild pitch on that 3rd strike.
Good for him.
Yeah, all the great pitchers the Orioles have had, that's probably the best pitch game they've ever seen. So that's saying something, right?
Yeah, that's pretty good.
And you pitched a lot against a lot of those great Oriole pitchers in the American League back in the day, right?
Yeah, we won a bunch and we lost a bunch. They were good, boys. They had a great pitching staff at one time. They had Dobson and Mac. I can't think of his name. Left-handed pitcher,
McNally.
Jimmy Palmer and whomever else, but they had a good ball club.
Yeah.
I mean, not only did they have good pitching, but they had that the golden vacuum over there at third base. He got everything. And anything you hit near him, he caught. And then you had Belanger at shortstop, maybe Johnson at second, and Boog at first. They had one hell of a club.
Well, you didn't play for a very bad club either. Once you got there and got yourself established, I mean, in your rookie year, I guess you were 16-6. That's really good for a rookie in any year. And then 66. I know that you got started. You started out 13-4, started the All-Star game for the first time, and finished 20-14. But it only got better. That's why I talk to people about Denny McClain, and they think, "Oh, that guy had that one good year. He won 30 games." Well, you didn't just have one good year. You had a lot of good years.
I won 108 games in 5 years.
That's pretty good.
Everybody used to tell us, "Well, that's the way you measure a pitcher for the first 5 years."
Yeah,
and whatever it is. But we had some pretty good years, and then of course I tore my rotator cuff.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about 1968. Obviously, it had to be a magical year for Denny McClain. 31-6, the last person to win 31 games or 30 games, I should say. I think 27 is the highest since. I think Bob Welch did it in the 90s. Maybe the 2000s. I guess it was the 90s. But you weren't coming out of games in the fifth inning to get 31 wins. I mean,
no, not at all. It was, when they put the ball on your stool in the clubhouse, they wanted you to go 9, as close to it as you could.
Yeah.
And, with the ball club I was playing with, they somehow, some way, they always got me a run or two early. And I've always prided myself pitching with a lead, and especially late in the ball game, and learned an awful lot from Charlie Dressen and Johnny Saint. Just you gear it up, you jump on the saddle in the 7th, 8th, and 9th inning, and you just you got to pick your spots. You don't want the superstar to beat you. So once in a while you got to work around the guy, but if you got a 2-3 run lead, you can pitch to anybody.
Would you say Johnny Sain was the biggest influence on Denny McClain becoming a very successful major league pitcher?
Yeah, him and Charlie Dressen.
Yeah.
Dressen brought up Koufax. And the reason why he brought me up so quickly was because I was straight over the top like Koufax was. And he saw the same thing in me that he saw in Koufax when I was pitching in the minor leagues at that short time. And called me up and said, "You are going to win a lot of games, my friend. Stay healthy." And lo and behold, he was right.
What was it like that 68 season where everything was just, coming up roses? And obviously, you were getting attention, I'm sure, that you hadn't had before from national media and all from all sides. I mean, what was it like? Did Denny McClain handle that well? Did you stay the same person? Did you change?
No, yeah. I mean, at that point in time, I had a wife and 3 children, and children have a sense of grounding you pretty good.
Yeah.
And so, every time I was at home, we're playing with the kids, but, it was fun. It was more fun early than it was late. Because once I got to 20 and it looked like I was going to still win 30, we all of a sudden started seeing a lot of media in every city. Mm-hmm. Not the droves that they have today, because everybody's got a computer, but legitimate media. And it was relentless, just relentless. And the day that I won 30, I'd never in my life, I had a tough time getting in the locker room. I mean, that's how many media people that were. In fact, they had to kick them out for a while so we could get dressed and get out on the field before we played. It was really, really nuts. And but again, nothing like today. I guess the biggest reason is they got bigger clubhouses today than we have.
Well, that's true, yeah.
And when you think about it, I mean, we had, 40 guys in that clubhouse, including the coaching staff and everybody else. And man, 40 people in a small clubhouse is a bitch. I'm telling you.
I'm sure the air conditioning wasn't great in 1968 either. Was there
conditioning?
Was there any?
We didn't have any. You had to bring. I remember bringing my own fan for my locker, and we actually had air, but they as soon as you put 35, 40 people in there, you've heated up the room, and you just had to play with what you had. So I brought my own fan of one of the big 18-inch things, and it was okay. I mean, that was the way we got through it.
Well, that was a great team too. You played on. We talked about before. You guys won the World Series. You play with some great players, and Al Kaline, Willie Horton, Northrop. I mean, we can go on and on. Bill Freehan. What was it like throwing to Bill Freehan? Was he, again, growing up, Bill Freehan was kind of the gold standard in the American League anyway for catchers.
He was the best catcher I ever pitched to, including amateur ball, minor league ball, major league ball. He was a professor of the game, and I say that in all seriousness. The guy always knew where we were in the game. He knew what to do in the game when we were in trouble. He always knew what we were going to try to do. We didn't always, do it, but we tried. And he was just in the game. I mean, the guy was literally in the game for 9 innings. And when he come out of a ball game, he was tired. I mean, I always used to say, man, that guy's tired. How many games in a row can he catch? But, man, he caught a bunch. And the only thing he didn't do was he didn't have the greatest throwing arm. But as far as everything else, stopping the ball in the dirt, making the plays that he needed to make at home plate, he was absolutely the best.
He was a pretty good clutch hitter, too. His numbers aren't huge, but he was a pretty good hitter for that time as a catcher.
He sure was. He sure was. And then the guy that was the great hitter, Kaline, we knew one thing starting in 66 or 67. If we needed a run in the 7th or 8th inning or a 9th inning, and Kaline was coming up, we were getting a run. I mean, that's the kind of player he was. I mean, he went to bat every time to do something, to produce something, not just to hit, but to go out there. And especially late in the ball game when you're a run down, he really went to bat big time.
Is there a guy in that club, Denny, that maybe we wouldn't think of off the top of our head, an unsung guy who kind of, really would come up in big spots all the time throughout that year, whether it was during the regular season or not playoffs, there's only World Series then. Is there a guy you can think of?
Northrop.
Yeah.
Northrop. It just seemed like every time he got into a ball game, and of course he flipped position with Stanley in center field because Mickey played against left-handed pitchers and Jimmy played against right-handed pitchers. And then, of course, Jimmy would spell Kaline or Northrop or Horton. And but Jimmy was the guy. Jimmy was besides the clutch hitters we just talked about, Jimmy was probably, with the exception of Gates Brown, was the most prolific hitter we had that year. Gates was the all-time leader in pinch hitting that year. I don't know what he hit, 400, something close to it. And boy, I'll tell you, he every time he went up, it just seemed like he had the big hit.
Interesting story himself, Gates Brown, his background, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. And you weren't the only. I mean, you were the workhorse, but you weren't the only workhorse on that team. You had a good wingman, and Mickey Lolich had a pretty good year that year, and a pretty good World Series too.
Yeah, he had a great World Series. Early in the year, he was in the bullpen for about 2 months. He couldn't get Molly putts out, and Johnny started to work with him and Hal Narragon, the both pitching coaches, and lo and behold, by the time late July rolled around, Lolich was becoming effective, and just in time for the World Series, thank God. And because I always said, if we didn't win the World Series, 31 wins was tarnished, number one, and number two, they would have hung me.
Yeah. So, I mean, you come back from that 68 again, all-world season, and it's not like you were chopped liver the next year. You still won 24 games. The team didn't do as well, and it was pretty much the same team. Obviously, the Orioles were just becoming a juggernaut at that point in time. But is there anything you can point to why that team didn't do better other than?
Listen, it was the Baltimore Orioles. They went well over 100 wins.
Yeah.
We won 90-something, and 90-something wasn't even close.
Yeah.
So, every once in a while, they just outplay you. And 67, we should have won it, except for the fact that I was out for 5 weeks. So, because I had 17 wins sometime in August. And lo and behold, I couldn't pitch anymore in September because I'd hurt my foot. And that cost us the pennant that year.
So, just because you talked about that, is there, obviously there's been a lot of rumors that have floated around in the last 50 years about Denny's injury and Denny's connections. I mean, is there any truth to the urban legends of how your foot got hurt?
If my foot had been hurt by anybody, the FBI would have certainly said so, because I was interviewed by the FBI extensively a number of times about these mafioso guys in Detroit. And that was so far from the truth. It was unbelievable. I mean, there were some serious problems there because of a friend of mine who worked for Pepsi-Cola VP over there and got himself in trouble gambling. And my mistake was loaning him money so he could pay his gambling debt because of all the threats that were being made to him. And then I was his godfather to one of his kids, and he became a godfather to one of my kids. So we were very close. And I was with Pepsi for 25 years. So not because of him, but because of our association here in Michigan. So it was a very good relationship for me, especially after I got out of the game. Yeah, between them and Hammond, who I also stayed with for almost 25 years. At least I had two incomes coming in at the time, and worked my butt off for 25 years.
So all the association with Denny and run and bookmaking and all of this stuff we've all read about over the years was because of the relationship with this Pepsi executive.
Oh yeah, Ed Schober was his name, and Eddie just had an addiction to gambling. He just loved to gamble: basketball, football, tiddlywinks. I don't care what it was. I mean, he would bet on it and not do very well, as you can well imagine. And then he lost $40,000 on a horse, by the way, that didn't run. And they fooled him and I didn't know. I mean, I wasn't following everything he was doing. Right. And then he had to come to me and he had to borrow $40,000 to pay these jerk-offs off.
And what did you gamble yourself at all on the other side?
No, never did.
Never gambled.
I gambled some football, with friends, and I don't know if I may have made some bets with a local bookmaker at a place called McGinnis's Sing-Along or in Flint, Michigan. But never baseball, never basketball. And somebody asked me, well, why don't you bet baseball? I said, I know nothing about the game.
I just pitch
nothing about the game. I said, all I know is I can score 8 runs in the first inning and get beat 9-8 by the end of the game. I said, that's not much of an edge.
So, I mean, what caused the baseball to go after you so strongly, do you think, with the loose ties that you had? I know there was articles written and whatnot, but what really got them after you?
There was a writer in Detroit who just hated me. His name was Pete Waldmeyer, and he was a feature writer in Detroit. He was a big-time guy here at one time. And Pete wrote an article that appeared on the front page of the Sports Illustrated, very famous cover, Denny McClain and the Mob. And the entire story was a lie. The entire story. He got a hold of some lunatic that gave him this story about me getting my foot slammed in a boat well. It was just so preposterous. in retrospect, we should have sued the hell out of him in the newspaper.
I was going to ask if you'd had thoughts of suing either one of them.
We did, but my attorneys wanted to get it over with, put it behind us, and move on and get back to playing the game because I got suspended for a while.
Right.
And that wasn't very nice. I had no income coming in. And at that point, I had still 3 children and a wife. And then about a year or 2 later, we had another child, another girl. And lo and behold, that was behind us finally. But at one time, that was just hell. I mean, that was the stories that were being written, that I was carrying a gun.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I am so anti-gun, you wouldn't believe it. I grew up in Chicago. I know what guns are. And that's not my favorite thing, guns.
Yeah. Well, with all of that, at some point you hurt your arm. Do you know when you hurt your arm, by the way? Because you didn't come back and pitch the same when you were, came back from your suspension, obviously.
Yeah, I sure do. It happened in 1966 when I first heard it. And they shot me with cortisone, and it kind of got better. Then from then on, starting in 67, when all of a sudden you became the guy on the team, you all of a sudden, you were never missing any more turns. You were pitching every 4th day. I don't care who was in your way. They moved him out of the way, and I got to pitch every 4th day, 67, 8, and 9. Never missed a start, I don't think. And lo and behold, I just kept beating it to death. And the more I pitched, the more cortisone I got. And by the time I got through playing, I'd had close to 200 cortisone shots.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's how they fixed everything then, right? Now you're just, all you're doing is masking the pain and doing more injury, I guess, right?
I'm hurting as bad today as I did when I played. I never got it repaired because, it took a long time for them to come up with a good operation.
Yeah.
We didn't have the operation back then. So we had the only thing, listen, the whole world is as far as professional sports, the whole world was either pain medicine or cortisone.
Yeah. You said rotator cuff. Is that what it was?
Yeah. Rotator cuff.
Yeah.
And look at all the guys that have had rotator cuff.
Oh, doesn't end guys' careers now. I mean, you miss a year and you're back and you're making, $20 million a year. So. Yeah,
but you know what? The percentage is 60% of them are only effective. The rest bomb. So, no, 60% don't make it back. 40% do. So that's what the stats are on that.
Yeah.
We were told.
So when your ties break with Detroit, I mean, obviously with everything that had gone on, what really precipitated the trade? I know I've read that you didn't get along with Mayo Smith great because he fired Johnny Sane for one thing.
No,
but
that's not true.
Not true?
Mayo and I were dear friends.
Okay.
The guy I didn't get along with, and I actually did get along with him, but he got mad. I threw 2 buckets of water on 2 writers in 1971.
Joe Falls was one, wasn't it?
70. One was a guy named Watson Spoelstra, who was the president of the association in Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
And the other guy was Jim Hawkins, who was a good guy. I mean, all Jim did was laugh about it. And as a matter of fact, he brought that same sports coat he wore in 1970 to a card show about a year and a half, 2 years ago. So he still got the sports coat, which was really funny. But Watson Spoelstra took it personally, and somebody told him it was cow pee. And I don't know where the hell we were going to get a cow from, for Christ's sake, in downtown Michigan, downtown Detroit. But somebody told him that, and he thought he smelled urine on him. It wasn't. It was water, water. And he ran right up to Jim Campbell, the general manager, president. And Campbell called me right after the game and said, "Come up and see me before you go home." I went up there, and he says, "I've got to suspend you for what you did to Watson Spoelstra." I said, "Well, if you're going to suspend me for what I did to Watson Spoelstra, what about Jim Hawkins?" He said, "No, Hawkins doesn't care." I said, so the other guy cares? What? The other guy cares? Why? I said, the guys, I won't use the language that I used that night, but I called this poster, and this poster was from the same paper this Waldmeyer was from, and they were creative writers. They had nothing to do with the truth most of the time. And in fact, they would write in such a way that even if we won, it was a negative article. Do you know what I mean? The Tigers got lucky last night by winning a game 4-2, that type of stuff. So, and by the way, his grandson, I think, is the coach of Orlando. Basketball.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that Spoelstra is his grandson.
Oh, Miami Heat.
Miami.
Yeah.
Miami. So I was in the right state at least.
Yeah.
We moved our way through there, and then of course I had already seen the FBI. I mean, they already knew everything going on, and they knew none of it was the truth. I mean, they just did everything they could. And then Campbell suspended me that night. And then they ordered me to go to Ford Hospital for a psychiatric examination. So I'm probably the only Major League Baseball player in the last 100 years that has a letter that states I'm sane.
That's funny. My mother had a friend one time said, I'm sane and I've got the papers to prove it. So
yep, I got the papers to prove it. That's for sure.
Right.
So then he suspended me for the rest of the season. And sometime during that period of time, Bob Short, who was the owner of the Washington Senators, he wanted me very badly for a couple of years. And that's when he made the deal with the Tigers to move me over to Washington. And I found out why later on, because he was moving the ball club from Washington to Dallas. And he wanted some high profile stuff to draw some people at least early in the season through the All-Star break in '69, and so he could make some money. But he did, in fact, move the club. Made the announcement the night before, a couple of nights before he moved the club. And you talk about bad publicity. In fact, they canceled the last couple of games in Washington that year because there were more players and more working personnel in the ballpark than there were fans.
And what was that like that year in Washington for you? I know you lost 20 games and you certainly weren't the pitcher that you were because of the injuries. I mean, did you start to think you were reaching the end or that you'd get through it?
Well, you know what? If I knew one thing. If I was with Detroit, I would have still. I think I still would have won. I still had pretty good stuff. We just never scored any runs. I think I got shut out 6 or 7 times. And when that happens to you, and you're pitching, Ted Williams and I did not get along very well, and he told me that his mission this year, and I always hoped he was tongue in cheek. He said, "My mission is to make sure you lose 31 games this year," something like that.
That's a good way to motivate your players,
and that's the way our relationship started. That was like one of the first things he ever said to me. And it only got worse from there until he needed my airplane to fly him for an emergency. And we became quite the friends after that.
That's interesting. The airplane, I'd made a note of that. I mean, you had to be one of the first guys, at least Major League Baseball players, to own your own plane. I don't think there was a lot of guys owning their own planes at that point in time. Today, there probably
there was one before me that I knew of, and that was Kenny Hubbs.
Oh,
with the Cubs, he was Rookie of the Year his first year, and he flew his plane into a mountain coming out of Utah. But that's the only guy I knew. As a matter of fact, my wife, and Sharon just died recently.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you. My wife of 51 years, she was engaged to Kenny Hubbs at one time.
Really?
Yeah. So, it's amazing how things work out, isn't it?
It is. And he had a lot of potential, if I remember.
He was Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, he was going to be a great player.
He won everything. And Sharon, of course, was the daughter of Lou Boudreau.
I remember reading that. What was it like being the son-in-law of Hall of Famer? I mean, he was a player manager too, at one point, I believe, right?
Sure was. At the age of 24, he took over the Cleveland Indians. He was intimidating to begin with.
Yeah.
And then became, my dad died when I was 13. And he then became, probably after 5, 6, 7 years of marriage and having some success in the big leagues, he really took the place of my dad. And he was just great to be around, great to be with. And he was a monster family man. And I've never met anybody that didn't like him.
Awesome. Well, your career doesn't really get back on track. You go to Oakland and you finish up with the Braves, and obviously the injuries had caught up with you at that point. And
but the thing about it in Oakland, I had a couple of shutouts.
Mm-hmm.
And the only reason they traded for me was because Vida Blue was holding out.
Right.
And they thought that because Vida had told him to go to hell. He says, I'm not playing unless I get da-da-da-da.
Yeah.
And so I figured I would be there until at least the half season. And that wasn't to be. I was there a couple of months. And by the way, those guys stiffed me from a World Series share that year.
No kidding.
Yeah, they stiffed me, the dirty bastards.
That was 72, right?
72, that's right.
Another pretty good man. How was your relationship with Dick Williams? We were talking about managers. How about him?
Dick was an alcoholic.
Mm.
He was nasty when he was drinking. He was fine when he was sober. He was a real team guy when he was sober. But any manager that drinks with the team is not a good manager.
Yeah.
Believe me, because he plays favorites. Guys get to play who shouldn't be playing. The managing of the game is not good. It's not consistent. And then when you smell booze on somebody's breath, you can't take them seriously.
Yeah, that's too bad too, because he was a great manager as well. So
he was. He sure was.
Yeah. So as you move into your post baseball career, obviously things were kind of up and down for you there too. And rather than me kind of go through it and talk about it, just kind of, if you could talk a little bit about, obviously you moved into radio, you got into some businesses that some did well, some didn't do well. Actually, you played baseball in London. I didn't want to leave that part out. Actually, you played more shortstop actually than you pitched over there. But
the guy that owned the team was a good friend of mine, a Canadian guy, and asked me to come over there to promote the league a little bit. So I went over probably 4 or 5 times when I was available, and just had a great weekend because they played 3 days in a row all the time, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And it was fun. It was literally fun. And I didn't pitch, by the way. I caught because I was a catcher at one time in my little league career.
Oh, you caught.
And I had a ball. I just had a ball. I wasn't a drinker, wasn't a smoker. And I just, it was just a bunch of fun. After the pressure of playing all season long. Yeah. And, it's to be out there with the beer league, it was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So once your career is over entirely, let's talk about the circumstances that led up to you, or, in your words, how did you end up, going to prison for the things that you went for? And I'm guessing there's 2 sides to everything. So I want to give you a chance to tell your side of the story, obviously.
There are, and I've only got about 2 more minutes to go.
That's okay.
With my daughter.
That's okay.
Listen, people make mistakes. I made a mistake. People don't understand that the first mistake I made was reversed by the federal court, the Court of Appeals. So that's the thing that got blown out of proportion. And it probably should have, but, we just, at one time, I had a deal a day coming to me. When you get this high profile, you've won 30 ball games. Everybody wants you to endorse their project. And whether it was a stock deal or whether it was a paint company, which I owned for quite some time, a steel company, which I still own, It was just one of those things that, they throw money at you. And, and what I would tell them is, listen, if you're serious about this, put the money on the table and give it to my attorney. Every deal I ever did, I gave to my attorney. And that's what I used to tell my attorney. I said, you should have gone to jail. You're the guy that did all the research on this. You did the what's the term? Looking into it.
The due diligence. The due diligence. Yeah.
I said, you did all the due diligence, for God's sakes. And
they never go to prison, Denny.
They never go to jail. They've always got an ace in their ass to get out of jail. So, but you know what? Nobody's perfect. I'm now 77. I feel pretty good, except for about 5 years ago in my steel company. My guy driving one of the forklifts, one of my guys, hit a pile of railroad ties that fell on my left leg.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I mean, listen, if I was 2 feet closer, I'm probably dead. And what happened was he broke my leg in 5 or 6 different places. Gosh. And I've been limping ever since with a cane. And, except for that, and my rotator cuff, which is, it is what it is. Life is, was pretty good until I lost my wife. And now it's just, the worst part about this being alone is the loneliness. Mm-hmm. I'm still living in the house. It's way too big for me, and I'm trying to figure out what the hell to do because my kids are all over the world. Mm-hmm. I've got a son in Australia, a son in Augusta. I've got a daughter in Tampa, Florida. I've got a daughter in San Antonio, another daughter in L.A., and another one in Boston. So
you got things pretty well covered around the world.
Listen, I've got a full court press, that's for sure. And you know what? The nicest thing, they've all got their college. They've all graduated well. They all had great schools that they went to. And the bottom line is they're all doing well.
That's awesome.
All doing well. And Sharon, before she passed, she was so proud of these kids, you just wouldn't have believed it. So am I.
Well, I'm really sorry for the passing of Sharon, your wife, and we wish you luck. Listen, you've come through a lot of stuff. You've gone through a lot of stuff, and everything we go through makes us who we are today. And it sounds like Denny McClain is at peace with things too, so that's really good too. And Denny,
pretty much.
Yeah, and are you still co-hosting the No Filter Sports?
No, Eli and I stopped. We were having so many problems with Bob Page. I don't know if you know Bob Page.
I've heard the name, yes.
Yeah, and he's kind of a loose cannon, loose lunatic. He chose to make a long story short, he just chose to go negative on everything. Uh-huh. He didn't believe in the pandemic, and he was saying that on the air, which was just startling to us. Yeah. I mean, listen, if you got an opinion about it, don't say it. We all know it's real. Right. I mean, 500,000 people are dead.
Right.
In our country, 500,000. That doesn't include all the millions in the other countries. Like what's happened in India. Because the last thing I say to everybody, all the interviews we do, please wear the mask. Please, 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 and get your injections. There's nothing better for the country than getting your injections.
Good call. Good call. Well, Denny, I appreciate you coming on and talking, openly and honestly about everything that we talked about. We could have gone on for a while. I know your time is short, so I want to thank you. Listen, people, get out and get. You also have a book that you wrote, an autobiography, and I'm missing.
And the book is called "I Told You Nobody's Perfect," and it looks like it's going to be a movie.
Is it? Who's going to play you? Me?
I don't know. I mean,
could you put me up for this role?
Well, I told him this. I said I get to do all the love scenes. So what happened was I just saw the first. What do they call it? The first script, and there wasn't one damn love scene in the whole damn movie. So I'm out again.
Right. I told you I wasn't perfect. That's the name of the book. I knew it would come to me if I waited long enough. So it's going to be a movie. That's going to be awesome. We'll be looking for that. And I was looking for the book before I had you on, and I couldn't find it on Kindle. But I'm hoping I'm going to do another search for it because I do want to read it. So.
It's a good book. I promise you, it's a good book.
Yeah, and we'll push it. If I can find it, I'll put a link up on my page once Facebook takes it out of jail, and we'll do that for you. So I wish you luck in the future, Denny, and hopefully we can stay in touch. And who knows, maybe we do something again.
Yeah, anytime you want. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, folks.
Thanks, Denny. Bye. Denny McClain, interesting character. Denny's full of opinions. Obviously, we kind of took a winding road through his career and his thoughts about baseball today and everything else that's going on in the world. Apparently, as we talked about, get his book. I did find it just last night. I told you I wasn't perfect. I found out some breaking news last night that it's being made into a motion picture. That should be interesting. I spent the night trying to think of people to play Denny during his career. That would be an interesting casting bit. So Denny's a great character. You know, what went on in his life, Denny knows better than anybody. You know, the stories out there, as he mentioned, some of them have been refuted. Everybody has their own opinions, right? But we got it from the horse's mouth today. And I thank Denny for doing that. Again, our condolences to Denny and his family on the passing of his wife, Sharon. Sad thing. They were married for a long, long time, obviously. And you heard a lot about Denny today. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. Denny was a great pitcher. Don't ever forget, this was not a fluke, this 31-game winning season. Denny was a great pitcher for a 4 or 5 year stretch there. Hurt his arm. Hurt your arm then. It was tough. There wasn't anything you can do. All the surgeries were invasive. So anyway, we might have to have Denny on again. I mean, we could have gone for a long while. We didn't dive into a lot of the stuff. We kind of touched the surface. I wanted to get Denny's opinions, as I said. But I do thank Denny for coming on. Sunday, we'll be on live with our Stream of Consciousness show. I will have Jim Beringer on. We're going to talk about the travesty that's going on in my mind anyway. Maybe Jim doesn't feel the same way with the New York Rangers. The whole issue with Wilson and the firing of John Davidson and the general manager. His name is escaping me at the moment. I apologize. But again, we're going to dive deep into that. We'll talk about all the Major League Baseball news, NBA winding down to the playoffs, and also some NFL. So join us Sunday. Next Friday, I have tentatively not scheduled a guest because the Hall of Fame inductions for the NBA are that weekend. Kind of put off a year. Jeff Gorton. Thank you, Brett Cloutier. I just got a quick message. Jeff Gorton, his name was escaping me. So next Friday, I don't know. I think we're going to just do a show, and I may have a guest. I don't know who I can bring in, but I want to talk about the Hall of Fame inductions that day. We're going to do a show on Northeast Streaming Sports later on that day, covering the press conferences that will be going on. The ceremonies are going to be at Mohegan Sun for those that are interested. I'm not sure what the protocols are, but you can look into that if you're an NBA fan and like to go to the inductions. They will not be at Springfield. They will be at the Hall of Fame itself. It'll be at Mohegan Sun. So anyway, we'll see how we go. I'll let you guys know. I've got a meeting with Mac McGrath about what we're going to do that day, or maybe even Saturday. We've got some access. We've been given some access by the NBA. So Northeast Streaming Sports, guys, is moving into the big time. The NBA recognizes us as a legitimate media outlet by giving us access to these press conferences and probably the ceremonies on Saturday. I don't know what we'll do. We're gonna hash that out. And my show Friday morning is going to revolve around whatever we decide to do Friday afternoon. So I'll let you guys know how we're going to proceed with that. But we do have some fun guests coming up as we move through May and into June. So hope you've enjoyed them, guys. Northeast Streaming Sports. You'll find me there. You'll find me on my personal page, my Keith Engel page. You'll find me on Zodiac TV. You'll find me on YouTube on both TGI Sports Talk and Northeast Streaming Sports pages until Facebook fixes and replaces the TGI Sports Talk official page. I cannot broadcast to that, and that's where the majority of the people that I reach come from. If you've got time, go to your settings button, send Facebook a message, say, put TGI Sports Talk back up. If I have to start over, I will. But my messages for Facebook on my shows are not going to be very good, and I may get removed altogether at some point, unfortunately, because I am not going to let this go unaddressed. It's not cool what they're doing here. So anyway, guys, we're out of time. It's been a great morning. Thank you, Denny McClain, for your open and honest approach to our interview today. Again, guys, you know the stories. You heard it from Denny McClain from the horse's mouth today, and you can take it however you choose. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk, you have a great weekend. We'll see you with something soon, probably a vlog this afternoon, and our show on Sunday. Look forward to seeing you then. Keith Engel, TGI Sports Talk on Northeast Streaming Sports. And hello, Zodiac viewers, and goodbye, Zodiac viewers. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.